This video is going to show you my final solo Grandmaster Nightfall for the week on the Devil's Lair. I do have a corrupted solo Grandmaster to upload. I already have that footage. I'll upload that run when it's the weekly featured strike, which will be tomorrow, reset time. So I'll upload the GM for corrupted, the solo clear on that, when reset comes. In the meantime though, this is a video just to bridge the gap if you like. This is a Shinobu's Vow skip grenade build on an Arc Hunter. Now I'm killing the first overload. I'm aware you can skip, and I have been doing that, but I had a realization. I was like, why are we skipping the first overload, right, when you can skip the second? See, it isn't specific to which champ that you skip. You can just skip one of them. Any champ that you want to pick, you can skip. So guess what? We'll skip the Hive one, the more awkward one. The one coming up is more awkward. Why? Because it's a closed room. There's Thrall, there's all that stuff. So we're going to skip this champ instead of the Overload. The Overload's really easy to deal with. Barrier takes longer to deal with. So this is going to save us time. Just make sure that you're amplified, that you have electric armor, and you will be able to skip past those enemies. When we deal with the first room, we want to focus the Hive Wizard first. If you don't, this will slow you down. Then we can focus the Overload. Don't worry about the ads, any fallen enemies surrounding the champ, because we're going to jolt the champ to then it'll kill any surrounding enemies anyways. So I've got grenade kickstart on, so if I do get up, well, I will get armor charge. So when I do get armor charge, I will be able to then use grenade kickstart or void weapon boost. So I have double void surge on, so I kind of use both. I understand that they conflict. Grenade kickstart and surge conflict a little bit, but because of how good the build is with grenade spam, grenade kickstart was just such a good mod to put on my on the arms. If you want the build, then there'll be a dim link for that in the description, right? So I'll just talk about mods as they come up. If it's something that I see as I'm talking through the run, then I'll mention it. Unfortunately, this is one sort of error of the run, is I wasn't able to kill the barrier before the barrier goes to meet the wizards and stuff, so that slowed down the run by 30 seconds or something. That cost us a bit of time, but other than that, the run's okay. It's not too bad. What I'm doing here is focusing at the fallen enemies rather than the Hive for now, just because it's a lost cause anyways. There's a barrier down there, so I'll focus the Overload instead. We'll fight from this bridge area. I'm going to use my Gathering Storm because you want to try and use your super as much as possible, because you're going to get plenty of supers anyways because of our mods that we have on our helmet, our super regen mods. So yeah, focus the fallen first. This bit would have been a little bit better if the barrier wasn't alive and I'd already killed, because my plan was to use Gathering Storm on the barrier. But what if you don't know what happens with that is you need to keep the two acolytes alive that surround the barrier. You then have a chance, a window if you like, to then kill the barrier. But Le Monarch poison damage killed the acolyte indirectly, so it just ended up the barrier was here anyways. So at this point then, if this happens, kill the two solo wizards before you deal with the barrier. Is the skip grenade build good? Well, I think it is decent this season, but without the mods that we have, the build isn't all that good. It's good right now because we've got so much things stacking at once. Lightning strikes twice, and you know, all that sort of stuff from the artifact. So right now, this is really good. This Arc Hunter build that I'm using, I'm not just using it because it's different. Well, I am using it because of that, but I'm also using it because it's pretty strong as well. I imagine this build that I'm showing would be good for Disgraced as well, because Disgraced is very similar to Devil's Lair. Really small rooms, add dense is high, add density. So yeah, it's really good. But the thing with Disgraced is there's no overloads, so it's a bit more effective here, because obviously Jolt will overload, plus I've got the Monarch on for, just because it's literally the best weapon for, well, it's one of the best weapons for Disgraced. Sorry, not Disgraced, Devil's Lair. The Arc Captain's still alive around this corner. That's fine, we use a skip. I've got Marksman's Dodge on instead of Gambler's. Why? Well, because we're not doing the punch dodge build. We're doing a skip grenade build. Marksman's Dodge is a longer, Gambler's Dodge is a longer cooldown than what Marksman's Dodge is, because of my build with the double bomber and stuff. So I'll dodge quite a lot, which means I get great energy on top of everything else. So that's why you'll see me dodging behind cover. You'll be like, why is he dodging? Well, just pay attention to the ability usage and you'll see why I'm dodging and stuff like that. So this is the shank phase. We'll try and get some grenades out on this phase just to speed things up as much as possible. Bear in mind we're pretty tanky as well, because we've got a really good uptime on amplified, right? So we're going to get that electric armor to proc, so we can push a little bit. We don't have to really stand at the back of the map so much. On certain phases we maybe do, but you can push a little bit. Phase 2, it's obviously the 3 solar wizards and a barrier champ. What you really want to do for this phase is, like I said, when barriers start to wander, barrier knights, it slows the whole thing down. So on this phase, make sure that you do one cycle your champ. If you've got a super, then it's your perfect time to use it. So that's why I stand back here, try and jolt the wizards as much as possible. Right, once a portion of the hive enemies are killed, that then spawns in the barrier. It's not just linked to you killing the solar wizards. It's just linked to a percentage of the hive enemies being killed. We immediately use super there. Then we go with the barrier break. Then we whip out the heavy. Just, you know, just wipe the barrier as quickly as possible. And then we can then start pushing for the rest of the fallen enemies. So the fallen enemies now will have their attention to you and you only now, because obviously all our hive enemies are killed. Well, nearly. Got some over here, hive knights and stuff. This is a little nice place to stand here. Take note where I stand, because this stand is this position, sorry, is great for phase 3, where it's just fallen overloads and fallen enemies. Not too great when there's hive up, because the hive will hide and this will just delay phase 2 and phase 3. So make sure you do take out, as I say, all the hive. This phase is a lot of arc shields, so we'll utilise our skip grenade as best as we can. Take that sniper down on the perch, he just slows you down. And you can see like how much grenade energy that we're actually getting, especially if we pair this with Spark of Shock. Spark of Shock, yes, to jolt, but Spark of Ions to get ability energy back. I have the recharge, the fragment recharge on as well. I could have went the Spark of Resistance, but you don't really need it. You've got so much resistance going on. So I made that change. I took resistance off and put Spark of Recharge on. So when I get critically wounded, I get ability energy. So you're getting even more energy on top of everything. So for GMs like this, where it's not as critical with your resistance and stuff, you can start to build in more ad clear ability options. Right? This is still phase 2 here. Shank phase again. They group up really nicely when you stand on this tanker thing. But we're really just waiting on the final phase, because like I said, this is where I'm going to stand. It speeds the whole thing up. Like if you stand at the back of the map, where you usually stand for ultimate safety, like the ads don't group up as nicely as they do here. You just see, watch now. So champion has appeared. We're waiting for those champs. It actually should be 2 champs. Don't know why it's just saying 1. It should be 2. These are the 2 champions here. So we'll get us done with Le Monarch, then go in with the super. That's what I was waiting on, because this is gonna, these two champs are gonna be jolted, which is gonna spread out all the electric to all the other enemies. So it's just gonna speed the whole thing up. So it's really nice being able to just use a super like that and then jolt both. and then take out both overlords. Speeds the whole thing up. There'll be some invisible marauders below you. Just use a couple of skips to take them. Just be careful because there's a sniper on that perch. To get, obviously, for the phase 3, you don't have to clear every ad, right? So it's just it's just most of the ads, like 90% of the enemies. Once that happens, you can obviously just proceed and go to the next section. So this is kind of how to sort of solo farm it, but the quicker way of doing it obviously would be Assassin's Call, punch, dodge, punch, dodge. If you really want to like be doing sub 20 minute, sub 15 minute clears, that's what you want to be doing. But it is a high risk, high reward thing, and don't just bear this in mind. People who do get those fast times have to farm for the time, right? I'll repeat that, they are farming for a time, not loot. If you're farming for loot, a loadout like this would be better, because you would be consistently doing it every time. Whereas with the Assassin's Cowl build, where you're trying to like beat world records and stuff, I'm sure you're a player stocked full of Ascendant Shards, stocked full of a vault with all your exotics masterworked. So I'm pretty sure that loot is not your goal. Your time is your goal. You're uploading to YouTube. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to tell you that there's conflicting objectives here. Depending on what player you are you even a content creator? If you're not concerned with any of that stuff. You're concerned with, right, I'm online now, I'm after work, I need to get some clears and get some loot. You shouldn't have any concern with your time too much. Well, you should have a bit of concern, but I'm on about not micromanaging your time to minutes to that degree, right? You just want to get on, get your clears safely done. Get some Ascendant Shards, masterwork your vault. That should be a goal of yours. As an endgame player, you should be masterworking pretty much every exotic that you own. Every exotic that you use at the very least. I actually like to masterwork every exotic with a good stat roll, because Destiny 2 is an ever-changing game, and that exotic that isn't very good now might be good in final shape. This has been true for its entire lifespan of the game, right? I'm trying to think of a good example of where an exotic was really bad and now it's really good. I suppose a good example is Oathkeepers for the Hunter. So Oathkeepers now is a really good exotic choice for endgame content, because it supercharges bows. Now whenever it's Overlord bow up, I know the Monarch's got intrinsic, but I'm on about legendary weapons. Whenever that's up, Oathkeeper on a Void Hunter is a really good endgame build, because they've completely changed Oathkeeper. So when they done this, I wasn't prepared. I had so many good stat rolls for Oathkeeper, deleted them in the past, because they were just getting in the way. And now I needed an Oathkeeper. I don't have one, so I've got to pull it from collections with a 48 stat roll. I feel bad about it, because in the past I've had 68 stat roll Oathkeepers. That's just an example of sandbox changing. So this week, when you're getting your shards, make sure that you're just masterworking your entire vault. An endgame PvE player who's played for a lot of years in D2, you should probably have a stocked vault by now. If you're just doing GMs. If you are a GM player and you've played all these years, you should have a fully stocked vault. I do, but, you know, obviously, after so many hours, you start to get more stats, and you can now exotic farm and pick which exotic you want, right? So there's even more reason to be doing that. So with the outside section, how to speed it up? Well, what I do is, once I've killed the barrier, I come on the left hand side, I spawn in the brigs. The brigs will spawn in when you push up so far, so we're waiting on that. We have a super. My goal is to use the super, my Gathering Storm, on the brig, because that is the best spent. Like, that's the best way to spend your super right now, is because the brigs take up your time. So you want to speed up this section, well then use your super on the brigs, because one Gathering Storm will get the faceplate knocked off the brig, and then when the faceplate is knocked off, you can then do massive damage. This Overlord was still stunned, can you believe that? I hadn't done any damage to him and he was a 3rd HP. What was all that about? I'll take it. It's a time. It's going to save us time, is that? Just goes to show how good the skip grenade build is right now. Because I was doing skip grenade damage to the brig, it was also indirectly doing damage to the overload. Plus I was doing the monarch damage, which was spreading between the two targets. So it was a 2-for-1 deal there. The next goal is these snipers where the tank is. Now, the monarch has less range than Wishender. Not its poison damage, but its impact damage. So I actually find it better to push up a little bit to take these snipers, rather than at the back of the map like I usually do. I like to push up to this container because I can at least safely jolt these targets and the tank can't see me. Take note of that as well. The tank hasn't seen me once. I know the tank doesn't have eyes, and I'm not that stupid to say that, but if the tank doesn't see you, the tank will not shoot. You have not aggroed the tank. The tank doesn't know where I am. This is good. This means I can comfortably deal with the snipers at the back of the map and the barrier, because the barrier will hang around in middle if you do it like this. The only goal, the only thing I would say is do not push past that red box. See the red box or the container in front of me? Don't push past that. You will then spawn in an overload and a load of enemies. That's what you don't want to happen, because the barrier is going to be a nuisance to you then. So right now, the best thing to do is kill the barrier. Tank is de-aggroed entirely. Tank's not doing a damn thing. Because as I say, I haven't let the tank see me once. If the tank does see you once, he will shoot at your last known location. Once the barrier is dealt with though, I let the tank see me, that's fine. Use a Gathering Storm super on the tank, because that's your next best spent super in my opinion. Well, either that or using it on the brig. But you're going to get another one for the next brig anyways, so it doesn't matter either way you do it. I'm just standing on this side, so it was probably the best time to just do a super. Once there's a leg broken, there'll be an additional spawn of enemies plus an overload. That's good because we can actually deal with this overload now. So I'm going to do a bit of multitasking here. The tank can't really hit us from left hand side, so I'm just going to deal with the invisible marauders that push, the brig and the overload in middle. Forget about the tank for now. This is how I do it. Well, I do it multiple ways, haven't I? Each video I've done it slightly different, but I think this is the best way for like easiness and just dealing with things, you know, step by step, but not being too slow about it neither. If you really want to know the best farm, reliable clears, it's Chaos Reach Warlock. But I've already done that and showed that off. I'm not going to just do another Chaos Reach run. What's the point in that? I've already showed you that run. But this, as I say, for Hunter mains, this is fun. This is interesting. Like I say, when you're playing with the skip grenades and you're using grenade kickstart and you're stunning a champ, you're getting armor charge because of counter charge, and you're just spamming your skips. You're forever jolting targets. It's actually really fun. It's a fun setup. I would say it's quite effective. I wouldn't say it's not ineffective, because I wouldn't have used it otherwise. So yeah, it's pretty decent. I'm going to deal with the brig from over here, because it just saves time, rather than me going all the way over there. I don't need to, do I? I actually don't think I end up using my Gathering Storm on this brig. It just didn't end up working out like that, because the brig's already half HP anyways, so we'll just keep jolting him with the skips, keep doing our Monarch poison damage. The next best spent super would be on the tank again, because this makes ammo more reliable as well. Because if you don't use a super at all, you're using 20 plus shots on the tank to kill the tank. Now obviously I'm using a arc linear, I'm using a precision frame one. The reason why I'm using a precision style frame linear and not an aggressive frame like Storm Chaser is because when you're playing from range, the precision frame linears are just better on console for me to use. They're just better overall. But when you're playing that medium to close range, so let's give you an example. Say you're playing Ghost of the Deep. You're doing DBS on Ghost of the Deep. I prefer, the way I do DBS, an aggressive frame linear for that fight. Why? Because I'm a little closer and it's doing a bit more damage than the precision frame ones. Right now I'm actually messing up completely. For some reason, I wasn't getting my crits there. The crit was in an awkward place. But yeah, so it depends on the encounter, whether you're picking a precision frame or an aggressive frame. It just depends. In this instance, for Devil's Lair, I see people using the aggressive frames. I prefer to use a precision frame. But if the encounter was a little different, I don't know, say it was disgraced, well then I might use an aggressive frame instead. If I was to use a linear, that is. So we're taking out some of the ads in middle. The outside section is pretty much clear. There's no ads at all. Tankies at less than a third. I think there's an arc shield in middle. So I've actually got, I think I've got an additional spawn of enemies here. Because I've never recognised the arc captain like this. So the way I've done it, I think I've ended up spawning extra enemies. Oh well, it doesn't really matter. The next thing that I would say that you should do is spawn in the overload. So push past the box. I'm going to do so now. You'll see on the left hand side, champion has appeared. Just so that it shows you that's how that's actually working. Your next goal is then deal with the overload. There's a skiff coming in, I think. I think that's why I've pushed back. Yes, there is. Just always be wary of them. And then we can just deal with the overload from a distance, because there is a couple of dregs alive that have the shotguns. So I've pushed back for that reason. Keep putting out the Lamanark damage. Remember, if I do start to throw my grenade, I am going to lose Void Weapon Boost. Right, so you can pick and choose at the time. I know, like I said, it's two different mods that serve a different purpose. But you can pick and choose. Do I want to throw more grenades for that particular instance of combat? Or do I just want to keep my Void Weapon Boost? Ultimately, it doesn't matter. That overload's getting killed in a similar amount of fashion anyways. But if there's more ads surrounding the champ, I would recommend you just do your skips. Because that's going to do more jolt. It's going to spread out more damage, and you're going to do a better job of multitasking the enemies. We've got another. We've got our Gathering Storm there, so we can now hit our crits. Tank should just be about dead now. This costs a little bit of time. If I'd hit my crits earlier, then the tank would have been dead by now. There's one arc captain alive that's annoying me at the minute. Literally one shot. Sometimes the skips as well, depending on the terrain that they hit. Sometimes they'll just bounce the way that you don't want them to. That is one downside to the setup. Is sometimes that happens, they'll just bounce back towards you, or left or right. But they do a good job of tracking the enemies, I will say that. I didn't find many instances where the skip was annoying. In actual fact, quite the opposite. They were actually quite useful. I know they don't do the damage that pulse grenades do. They're nowhere near. Pulse grenade right now is doing so much more damage than any other nade. Like, well, I mean the arc grenades, right? It's just, there's no reason not to use pulse unless you're using a specific build like this, or like arc web build. Like that would be a good setup with the lucky raspberry. That's actually good. Arc bolts. See, arc web or arc bolts, can't remember what the name is. But that nade is really good. You can spam your grenade with that as well. There is a bit of RNG to that build though, bear that in mind. Whereas with skip grenades, it is what you see, how it is. You gain the grenade energy when you get hits. Not kills, just hits. That's what makes it so effective. Basically the same as what Controverse Hold does. It's the same thing as Controverse Hold, just that Controverse Hold Vortex Grenade ticks for a lot more damage than what skip grenades would, obviously. Final overload here with full super, which is what we want. You want a full super for the first boss, because I'm going to do the boss in a structured way entirely, so that it's pretty quick and a quick clear. Now I could have went for heavy. I know there's heavy behind me, but I just ran to the boss. Because heavy isn't... It's not that much of a requirement to have that much heavy. We're going to do a lot of ag clear anyways, so we're going to get the bricks at the boss fight. 2 overloads before this section here first. When there is champions up, I spam my skip as much as possible because there is a couple of dregs around. So that's going to do us a good job of ag clear. Plus, because we've jolted one champion to another, both champions are taking damage and they're both getting stunned. You'll see once I'm done with the first overload, the second overload is going to be half HP or whatever. And you can see both of them are getting stunned anyways. So this is really a good situation. Once I've dealt with the 2 overloads, I do want a decent amount of skip energy though for when I start the fight. So when there's down to just 1 overload, I will save a bit of skip grenade energy. Overload is just about killed, finishable. I'm going to get the kill with Le Monarch though, just in case I get a heavy drop. Rather than finish a kill, didn't. That's fine. So how we do this is we pre-aim the Gavin. Make sure you don't miss it because your strategy's messed up if you do. Go with the Gavin Storm first and then 2 or 3 shots. 2 or 3 shots with the linear and that should get the boss to next phase immediately. You'll get 2 arc captains push you, but then just use your skips. Spam your skips as much as possible. The more ability energy that you have, the more effective it is. Like if you start combat with just 1 skip, the combat loop's going to end up meaning that you'll run out of skip energy quicker. If you start an engagement with 2 skip grenades, you're going to be able to throw 3 to 4 back to back, if you see what I'm saying. Which is why I wanted to start with the skips. Plus, always remember to dodge. You're going to get a lot of class ability energy, right? Because obviously when I dodge, I activate Bomber, which is really nice. And then I'll activate Dynamo. I think I've got Dynamo on as well. But that only works when I'm surrounded by a lot of enemies. Our goal here is to just basically do a little bit of ag clear, not too much. Do a little bit of ag clear and then just focus the servitors. Focus the servitors with Le Monarch and farm super. We're already there anyways with the super. We've got it. Just about. We're going to clear all servitors bar 1. Then we're going to do a bit of ag clear. Clear the entire section. Right, for phase 2 to get ready for damage. Because if you kill the final servitor in here where you're in this room, you're going to find it difficult to get a good shot off with Gavin Storm. Plan B would be to go all the way downstairs, wait for for the boss to teleport to the back of the map, and then do it that way. But I wanted to instead clear the ads here, right? Get some heavy on the ground, hopefully. Then clear the servitor outside, so then I can get a clean shot with Gavin Storm, and then I can use some linear shots as well, because 1 Gavin Storm Super War isn't enough to do a third of the boss's HP. So you need to do some extra linear shots. That what I mean about by that is to actually get to the next phase so that the boss is immune again, to speed the whole thing up. Because if you don't and your Gavin Storm Super finishes, you've then got to search out some extra shots. Which isn't a problem, by the way. Like, I'm not making an issue of it. It's not a problem. You can just go downstairs, peek the boss at full HP, get some extra linear shots or even Le Monarch shots, and then push him to that next phase. The full section is cleared. The reason why I've stopped there though is I've got an Explorer Shank, so I'm going to wait. Get the Explorer Shank first, kill the final servitor, equip heavy, use super first, then some linear shots. Try and get as much as we can while there's no ads alive. I don't think I end up doing enough damage here, so I was quite unlucky. Also quite lucky as well because I was quite weak there. This is actually really lucky. Look at my health. Oh my god. Whatever reason, that dreg just turned into melee mode. I was so lucky. The fact that he didn't. He actually has the exotic Dreg's Promise on. fun fact. And most of you don't even know what that exotic is. They should just give us it. If they can hold it, we should be able to. Literally a D1 exotic. And he didn't shoot me, which was so interesting. So yeah, I should have died there, and I didn't. Which was, it was really lucky, to be honest. But situations like that, they rarely happen. It was a freak thing. Very rarely have I seen it happen like that in that instance. We've pushed the boss to phase 2. We can now do a little bit of spamming our grenades and stuff. Champs are up as well. So this is where we're going to do a bit of monarch damage, a bit of skip damage. We can spam linear if we wanted to, but I'm sort of not doing that at the minute. I think I'm more. I think I'm more focused on having fun with the nades. The key thing what I'm doing though is I'm engaging the champ left and right of this room, not just maintaining my position from the doorway, because that will result in a death, because the arc attack will then eventually seek me out. But if I'm left and right, that arc attack, it hasn't got much like the arc attack from the captain at the back of the map, because that's the issue right now, is that that actual enemy is struggling to hit me. Now I use my super here expecting the champ to be there, and he wasn't. So that was unfortunate, but that's fine. It doesn't really impact the run, because we're still not done anyways in clearing some of the ads. So that wasn't a problem, because we actually ended up getting our super back for the final phase anyways. And we haven't worked on the servitors. You'll get a lot of super energy whilst fighting the servitors. I'm going to use a bit of heavy here as well, because there's some heavy on the ground out there to pick up. So I may as well. Like I say, you don't need much linear, like 3-4 shots maximum plus your super, providing that you hit it. If you miss it, which you shouldn't do by the way, but if you do, then that would mean that at the very end it would cost you time, of course. We'll kill all servitors bar 1, we'll weaken the last servitor, then we'll do a little bit of ad clear. There's 2 annoying captains at the back of the map. Depending on how I feel, I might take them, but my goal is actually to pick up some heavy, which there is some heavy out there, so I'll do a couple of skips, especially at the back of the map. We'll also be conscious of if there's any shanks, exploder shanks, because that is really the only risk of us dying, is if we peek out and there's an exploder shank right there. There's still the overload to take out, which we're going to come in this little alleyway here and deal with the captain. Has anyone, I've just had a thought, has anyone realised that this Devil's Lair boss room is the same room as Grasp of Avarice Ogre boss? The layout is almost identical. Isn't that funny? It's almost the same. I've just thought that now. It's the same layout. The only difference is that there's a railing at the back for Grasp of Avarice. But we fight in reverse. So rather than fighting where I am now, we fight at the other end of the map. Yeah, it's just a thought. We picked up our heavy now. No need to take out these captains, because we're sort of done. Because what I'm going to do is do my Gathering Storm from down below. So what you're going to realise with this boss, once his shield's taken out, he will teleport. That's the first teleport that is scripted. It always happens. So let the boss teleport. Don't try and Gathering Storm beforehand if you're going to super down below. So you'll go down below, he'll port to the back of the map, like so. You can then use your Gathering Storm super, which does have a little bit of aim assist, so it's going to help you that way. Just make sure your cursor's on him though. Then we'll put in a bit of heavy. Boss is almost one shot. I just ran back there just for a second or two, just in case that the ads would kill me. But we can then literally finish the boss with a couple of extra shots, and then that's the solo GM done on a skip grenade arc hunter. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.